and welcome to the Public TV of Armenia. Today I will host Mr. Victor Kipiani, founder of the Geocase think tank, and Tornike Sharashenidze, Professor of the Georgian Institute of Public Affairs. They are in Yerevan to participate in Armenian-Georgian Expert Forum organized by Orbeli think tank. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Armenia and Georgia are transitioning their relationship into strategic cooperation in bilateral relationship. The two governments already signed relevant documents, and I would like to ask, how would you describe and assess this qualitative change in bilateral relations?
It's extremely timely because of the nature of our bilateral relations has long deserved to be leveled up to the status of strategic partnership, especially in the changing realities of the geopolitics in the South Caucasus and around. That was the right step in the right direction, as I've said, very timely. So that again, a demonstration of that very deep substance and high degree of those relations on every possible level, and definitely we all very much look forward that those relations with this new status would be substantiated to the largest extent possible.
Mr. Sharashenidze.
I would say that it was a long overdue. It was a long overdue because Georgia and Armenia, we are, two fellow Christian nations with two fellow democracies. Unfortunately, democracy as such has been in retreat globally, including our region. And I'm glad that now Armenia is back on a Western track, so to say. Because Armenia belongs to the West, we deeply believe so in Georgia. And I believe that Armenia's, let's say, pro-Western orientation will make Georgia's bid for European Union membership even stronger. And also, of course, it means that Georgia will do everything possible to make it easier for Armenia to enter the European Union. I mean that we complement each other, we make each other stronger there. Because as we may remember, Baltic states, they made it together. They made it together to NATO, to made together to the European Union. Unfortunately, there was no unity in the South Caucasus since the 90s. But now we may have some kind of a unity, at least between Georgia and Armenia.
This strategic partnership also assumes some ambitious agenda. And in your opinion, what issues should be included in Armenia-Georgia agenda? And which areas are the most promising in terms of cooperation and strategic relations?
Well, to start with, and it's my personal view, which is probably shared by my colleague, Mr. Sharashenidze, and many others, that for some reasons, Armenia has fell out of the infrastructure developments, regional infrastructure developments. So definitely and clearly enough, that would be quite a solid basis to promote that level of cooperation under the new connotation of the strategic partnership, especially in the context of newly declared initiative by Prime Minister Pashinyan, the Crossroads for Peace. It would be extremely interesting to see how there could be any, I won't be saying overlap, but on the Georgian side, we're expecting two major projects in the pipeline. One is a middle corridor, and another the Black Sea electricity cable. Mm-hmm. At this point in time, perhaps it's quite premature to speak about any how the Crossroads for Peace initiative could fit in with the middle corridor. But during the meetings over the last days with different stakeholders, we've had that Armenia is very much interested in joining the Black Sea electricity cable. And since Georgia is a participant of that project, probably that could create a solid basis for negotiations. Also to add with, since I mentioned the infrastructure project, although there could be various other dimensions, we're in the process of constructing an nuclear deep-sea water port. Perhaps that could also be an alternative for Armenia to consider in terms of diversifying transport corridors and transport routes. So to start with, again, infrastructure, ending up with cultural exchange, but most and foremost, it's ensuring into stability into the region and also helping each other. That's something which I also noted in course of my discussions on the panel session. in terms of contributing to each other's sustainability, which is about democratic resilience, civic society, and institutional capacity building.
As we all know, Armenia was left out of regional infrastructural projects for understandable reasons, and now we are happy to welcome back Armenia to the regional cooperation. I believe that the region has not explored fully its potential. I mean that there are pipelines, which includes, as we know, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. But now, as Armenia is back into game, into regional cooperation, I believe that we have potential for some maybe even bigger projects. As already my friend Victor mentioned, we would gladly see, of course, Armenia as a participant of the Black Sea electricity cable, which would make, of course, this project even more important. It's very important to understand for all of us that Georgia and Armenia were small states, and small states desperately need some kind of a major function to survive. First of all, to survive, of course, but because unfortunately we live in a region where survival is still a serious issue, as we all know. That's it.
You mentioned about the Crossroads of Peace project, which was discussed and presented during the framework of Armenia EU-USA summit, which took place on April 5 in Brussels. I would like you to explain and to present the opinion in Georgia in general about this Armenian initiative.
It looks to me that at this point, that initiative is still remains under the consideration. I personally have not come across any practicable steps or practicable actions in that respect. It is also my understanding that that project on Armenia's side is very much subject to the publicity campaign at this point inside of Armenia and outside of Armenia. So that initiative has been noted. To start with, that initiative has been announced in Tbilisi during the course of the Silk Road Forum, which is very notable. And of course, any breach or any nexus in terms of better cooperation or better realignment or alignment of business and commerce and trade interests or infrastructure interests between Armenia and Georgia would be indeed very highly welcome. But to repeat again, up to my knowledge, at this point in time, there is not much of a practicable action or practicable space room which could allow us to speak in more substantial terms about that initiative.
I would say that Georgia would be happy with a project of that scale, because Georgia in general welcomes regional cooperation. For that, of course, we have to have peace in the region. That's one of the major prerequisites, of course, so that we are able to focus on projects of that scale, which should benefit all of us, all South Caucasus nations, I would say. And the tricky question is here, what comes first, cooperation and then peace, or peace first and cooperation? Because economic cooperation, of course, helps with peace building. I guess they go both together. And Georgia, of course, I would say, should do, and I'm pretty sure Georgia will do everything possible to bring peace to the region, because we need now sustainable, comprehensive peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia, of course, in the first place. And I'm also very glad to mention in this context that Georgia and Armenia are starting now negotiations to delimitate state border. That's a very important step ahead, I would say, and that could become a very good example for the whole region.
You also mentioned about Georgia being granted EU membership candidate status months ago, and the next milestone might be the start of negotiations on EU membership. Armenia also announced, as you said, readiness to deepen relations with EU and develop a new, more ambitious agenda. What do you think, how would the accumulated experience of Georgia within the framework of European integration process contribute and be useful for Armenia and become a new direction of bilateral relations between two countries?
That is indeed a very, very important question and a very important direction for increasing that bilateral cooperation. Of course, when it comes to Georgia experience, it's about knowledge sharing, it's about experience sharing. That's something which our Armenian colleagues are repeating over and over on every single occasion. And of course, we are happy, and we would be extremely happy to contribute to Armenian progress in that respect, because better united we are, and more we are on the same frequency, it would make it much easier for Georgia as well, and definitely it would make much easier for Armenia as well. So I think, and also it's a bit premature, unfortunately, to speak about the South Caucasus as united geopolitical or geoeconomical unity, but that bilateral relations are already a right message also to the global community, to the world, that we are ready and we are willing to get rid of the toxic connotations which unfortunately over the last 3 decades accompany the South Caucasus, the region with civil wars, strifes, etc., etc. And we are ready to make that progressive steps, and also alongside with type of forming up that political dialogue or geopolitical dialogue, also become attractive for investments, for world businesses. The world became very much competitive. The world became very much egoistic. And for us, the South Caucasus nations, and it's not many of us, just 3, it's very important to see and to feel how the world develops.
Yeah, because the investors, as we may know, they would like to see a stable region and stable countries to invest.
Absolutely. And then augmenting each other capacity. As we've said in course of this conversation, we're relatively small markets. Making those markets bigger could make them more attractive and more competitive in terms of that long queue for investments and global businesses.
Yeah, Mr. Sharashenidze.
We should all remember that it was Ukraine that actually opened up this window of opportunity for both of us, Georgia and potentially Armenia too, hopefully, because we are looking very much forward. We in Georgia were looking very much forward. Armenia gets also candidacy status. So that very much depends, of course, on the outcome of the war in Ukraine. Very much depends on that. And we shouldn't forget that the whole world is focused now on this war. And there are a few possible scenarios how this war ends. If we get, let's say, more or less normal, optimistic scenario, then I believe Ukraine will be in the European Union, and Ukraine will serve as act as a driving force for Moldova, for Georgia, and also Armenia too. I believe once again I have to repeat myself, and Georgia's bid for EU membership will be stronger with the help of Armenia, and Georgia, of course, will try to drive Armenia to the European Union, because it's going to be easier for us when 2 of us are trying to get there. And plus, I believe geography plays a very important role in this matter. Of course, European Union, of course, is interested in Georgia, but when it comes to Georgia and Armenia, that means that, well, a huge part of South Caucasus is already there.
Because we are stronger together.
Of course, yeah, that's the point.
Coming to the war in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine continues, and it is, and the geopolitical confrontation between the West and Russia continues, and it has its impact on South Caucasus as well, as we know. In this regard, what challenges does Georgia face and faced until now, and how the country is addressing these challenges?
This is one of those controversies when the Georgian stance on the war in Ukraine is looked from outside. What I'm saying, it's my personal view that Georgia is exercising its own type of Georgia's balancing acts. That, of course, entails any type of political and humanitarian support to Ukraine. But that excludes any type of that input or engagement by Georgia, be it in security, defense, or in terms of enforcing bilateral sanctions, which could endanger Georgia's sovereignty and Georgia's security. We don't have to forget that we are in a very volatile region of the world, as we call ourselves, being the prison of geography. And unless you don't have a formidable security umbrella, it's really very hard to be as courageous as some who are shielded by NATO security umbrella or any other security arrangements could set forth their political positions. So I would, again, using your TV channel, would ask Armenian audience and beyond Armenian audience to treat that with as much understanding as possible. We're walking a very fine line in the context of that war. And it's also a very hard question, what could be a new security design when that war ends? And that security design, the final shape of that security design is still in the flux. Taking that into consideration, probably it's even could be even better understood and more understood why we're sort of, balancing in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Mr. Sharashenidze, what is your
We
opinion?
should not forget Georgia already fought 2 wars with Russia. One of them, I'm sure everybody has heard of, it's War of 2008 in August. But before that, in 92-93, Georgia had a war in Abkhazia, and Russians were almost openly supporting the Abkhazian separatists against Georgian forces, which included not only Cossacks and different mercenaries, but also regular troops, including some elite units, actually. After the last war, the war of 2008, the Russians stationed the military base in some 40 kilometers from Tbilisi. So having the Russian military base in 40 kilometers from your capital, of course, well, affects your behavior, affects your foreign policy, definitely. This is actually what stands behind Georgia's cautious behavior. Since the war started, war in Ukraine, of course, Georgia has been supporting Ukraine morally, emotionally, of course, but and there are quite a lot Georgians fighting on the Ukrainian side. Unfortunately, they have taken huge casualties too. About 50 Georgians already died there. But at the same time, Georgia is not directly involved in this war, of course. Definitely, we simply cannot afford it. That's it. So this cautious behavior, once again, it has to be explained by the fact, as Victor already mentioned, Georgia has no security umbrella. We are not members of NATO. We don't have any kind of bilateral defense pact with anyone, like the Korea or Japan they have with the United States. So we are on our own at this moment, and this has to be taken into account. That's it.
In Armenia, you participated in the Armenia-Georgia Strategic Partnership from Concept to Reality Expert Forum, and which was organized by Orbeli think tank. What do you think about such initiatives and the importance of the expertise in both sides?
Well, Tornike, we extremely we found them extremely productive and extremely useful, and that's again indicate that when we speak about the bilateral relations, they should be running across all the strait of the site. It's not just at the highest level or the official level. There are very exotic terms like track 1.5 diplomacy, etc., etc. But what it actually means that cooperation should run at the level of at the grassroots level, which means also involving non-official stakeholders, but those who have their own say in home countries. And when I'm saying that it's been very fruitful, it's very productive. We had very honest discussions, including with different officials here. We had their message boxes. We now in a better position to understand them. We were in a better position to convey our message boxes. And I think, that sincere and genuine discussions, what makes our cooperation as strong as possible and to long across many, many decades ahead.
Yes.
I believe our Armenian colleagues here and us back in Georgia, now we should promote very strongly the idea of the importance of Georgian-Armenian friendship. because we actually need each other very, very much. And it has to be understood on every single level, starting from the grassroots level and, of course, ending up on the very highest level. I believe there is a political willingness on the level of political elites, but at the same time, we have to be, let's say, we have to work strongly also on the grassroots level, so that people from both sides understand how much we need each other, how much we need each other as neighbors, as friendly nations. And nations that now at this moment, finally, we are, both of us, are oriented at the Western integration. That's very important.
So the more we have connections and relations between not only official level, also expert and common society level, the better it is.
Yes, on a frequent basis, on a regular basis, and on an uninterrupted basis, definitely that would have a huge say and huge impact as well.
Scientific, also cultural.
By all means.
Always.
Especially cultural, I would say. We have so much in common. You name Armenians of Georgian origin, so many of them, like Parajan of Sharlaznavur and Onestumanian, so many of them. Yeah, it's common cultural heritage. Very.
Sure. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
This is Public TV of Armenia, and today I hosted Mr. Victor Kipiani, founder of Geocase think tank, and Tornike Sharashenidze, professor of the Georgian Institute of Public Affairs. They are in Yerevan to participate in Armenian-Georgian Expert Forum organized by Orbeli think tank. Thank you for watching.